The 2010 Haiti earthquake happened on January 12, 2010 at 4:53 p.m. If you look on this map, you can see that the magnitude of the earthquake was 7.0 and the depth was 13 kilometers or 8.1 miles. This is considered to be a very shallow earthquake and increased the shaking on the Earth's surface. This also caused the quake to be felt in Dominican Republic and parts of Cuba, Jamaica, and Puerto Rico, as well as Haiti. There was a slippage along the conservative plate boundary that runs through Haiti, and Haiti sits where the Caribbean and North American plates meet. The Caribbean plate moved east in relation to the North American plate, and the quake was a result due to seismic activity between the convergent plate boundaries that occurred north of the Enrico Plantain Garden Fault Zone. Strain often builds up between the North American and Caribbean plates until there's a sudden energy burst, which causes an earthquake. The Caribbean plate was even moving just about a quarter of an inch per year leading up to this earthquake. The most affected area was Port-au-Prince, and the epicenter was about 15 miles southwest of Port-au-Prince. If you look at these pictures, you can see the devastation in Port-au-Prince.
The 2010 Haiti earthquake affected humans in many negative ways. The Haitian government estimated that the death toll was around 300,000 people, but the true number is unknown due to the chaotic environment following the disaster. Haiti's cities had an unstable infrastructure and inadequate building codes prior to the earthquake, resulting in the collapse of many homes and buildings. As a result of this, over 500,000 Haitian residents lived in tents for upwards of 3 years following the earthquake, and some still remain in makeshift houses. Some water, electricity, and sewer systems are still dysfunctional today. Billions of dollars donated to aid Haiti's recovery were misplaced, many accusing the Haitian president of embezzlement. The citizens of Haiti turned to violence against the political injustice, leading to 50 deaths and more than 100 injuries.
The landscape in Haiti was heavily affected by the 7.0 magnitude earthquake. It was reported that nearly 40 to 50% of the buildings in surrounding towns were destroyed. Locally, this creates an abundant amount of waste in the air and all over Haiti. Left behind was about 4,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools worth of debris. Secondary hazards that occurred were liquefaction and landslides. These resulted in even more damage and loss of lives. The earthquake also caused 2 3-meter tsunamis. While the earthquake did not directly impact the climate in Haiti, it did make them more vulnerable to climate change. The wildlife in Haiti was affected by this earthquake. There were reports that thousands of animals were injured and dying after the earthquake. More than 1 million farm animals, pets, were injured or abandoned. The local effects of the earthquake were tremendous. 300,000 people lost their lives, and over 2.3 million people were left homeless. 80% of the education buildings were damaged. The port to Port-au-Prince was damaged and resulted in drastic slowdown of the support systems. Many different countries sent aid and donations to help Haiti with this tragedy. After a few months, $13.5 billion from other nations came through. This was used to rebuild infrastructures, provide food and water and shelter to those many displaced people. The earthquake resulted from the Caribbean tectonic plates and the North American plates sliding past each other in an east-west direction. This tectonic boundary is a transform plate boundary, and the fault is known as a strike-slip fault, where a very high amount of tension builds up over time, which the release of energy then results in an earthquake.
This is true, and today we're going to be talking about the lessons learned from the 2010 Haiti earthquake. One thing that was very apparent were the buildings around Haiti were not earthquake prepared. And when the earthquake came in 2010, many buildings were destroyed and homes lost for families. After this earthquake, many around Haiti used experts and construction experts to ensure that their houses and other infrastructure and buildings were earthquake safe, so the next storm that came around, their buildings would not be destroyed. Another major issue was the coordination between the Haitian government and other humanitarian aid organizations. They did not coordinate very well, and because of that, many people suffered because of lack of coordination and other efforts failing in the island. Due to this, the Haitian government has ensured and other organizations that they will do a better job next time in setting up safe options, such as making sure that affordable housing is available after a natural disaster and in Haiti, so people have a place to live after a disaster like this. One thing the community did to come together, though, was to get jobs in rehabilitation and other medical and social programs to ensure that Haitians had an opportunity to survive through this earthquake and future natural disasters on the island.
Some fun facts about the Haitian earthquake in 2010 was that the earthquake was a 7.0 on the Richter scale. 3.5 million Haitians were directly affected from it. The epicenter was near the city of Léogâne. The death toll was roughly 316,000, and the immediate death toll was 220,000. 1.5 million Haitians were immediately homeless. The quake struck at a depth of 8.1 miles. There was a tsunami a couple days after in a nearby city that killed 3 people. There are still 32,000 Haitians displaced and homeless to this day.